Welcome back to True Cyber Crimes, the podcast where we dive deep into the digital disasters, online chaos, and the moments when the internet collectively stopped and asked, how did this actually happen? I'm Chris.
And I'm Nick, the guy who has certainly rage quit Candy Crush and other games over the years. So yeah, I can relate to gamer pain and technical frustration on a very deep emotional level. I don't play video games with my boys anymore for that reason. But Chris, today's topic feels a bit more corporate catastrophe than angry gamer, right?
Yes, for sure. It's a massive corporate catastrophe, Nick. But the irony is that it started with the same kind of mistakes we all make. We're talking about the Snowflake data spillage of 2024. Now, for those who didn't know, Snowflake is a cloud data giant. They're the data warehouse. Imagine a literal warehouse, but instead of boxes, it's filled with every digital interaction you've ever had with a company. Companies like Ticketmaster, Santerra, and LendingTree use them to stores of mountains of customer information. But here's the kicker. Snowflake itself wasn't actually breached. Their servers didn't have a hole in them. Instead, a group known as UNC 5537 basically walked through the front door using keys they found in the digital equivalent of a gutter.
But all right, so I'm gonna need you to explain this to me, Chris.
Okay.
If Snowflake didn't get hacked in traditional sense that we talk about here on True Cyber Crimes, how did 160 companies end up losing that data? I mean, it sounds like a distinction without a difference to the millions of people whose credit card info is now floating around on the dark web. If the front door was locked, how did these guys get in? Was it massive social engineering? Did someone just leave a sticky note with a password when they were like working at Starbucks? Like how did this? I need more.
Well, I'm glad you asked. So it's actually more modern than a sticky note. It comes down to something called info stealer malware. Think of a program like Redline, Viter, or Raccoon. These aren't like the old school viruses that just delete your files or make your screen turn blue. These are silent observers. They usually get onto a computer when someone is looking for something they shouldn't be, like a cracked version of Adobe Photoshop or a cheat for a Call of Duty. Something you should really be doing on your corporate computer.
Right. Yeah. I only search for Call of Duty cheats on my work laptop. Well, so we're talking about corporate employees with high level access, potentially likely to sensitive databases or information, who are downloading these things on websites they maybe shouldn't be on their corporate computers. This sounds like an employee handbook issue first and foremost.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a section in there that's devoted to just what happened here, but exactly. Or this is more common. They're using their personal laptop to log into work systems. Maybe they wanted to finish a report from the couch and they didn't want to dig their work laptop out of the bag or bring it home for that matter. If that personal laptop was infected with an info stealer 6 months ago because their kid tried to download free Minecraft skins, the malware's already logged in. Every username and password saved in Chrome or Edge. The hacker, UNC 5537, didn't have to break into Snowflake. They just went into a log shop on the dark web, bought a bunch of stolen credentials for Snowflake accounts, and tried them one by one until they found one that worked.
Yeah, and this is working with pen testers is a pretty common approach, right? Just taking either accounts that you already know or accounts that or passwords that are very likely, and just going, all right, let's see, right? If we don't have to break in, it's a lot easier to use somebody else's keys to get in the front door than it is to break it down. So, but it's still that feels pretty fragile. Gonna ask kind of a rhetorical question here, but shouldn't there maybe be a second layer, code that pops up on your phone or something like that?
And that's exactly where the story goes from unfortunate to unforgivable. Snowflake offered multi-factor authentication, MFA, but they didn't require it. Boy, have we talked about this before. It was optional. It's like a bank building a $10 million vault, but making the alarm system an add-on that the manager has to remember to turn on. When Mandit, the security firm that investigated this, went in to look at the wreckage, they found that almost every single one of the compromised accounts had zero MFA enabled. We're talking about massive billion-dollar companies, and they weren't even using the basic security features that grandma used on her Facebook account. The hackers just typed in the stolen usernames, hit enter, and they were in.
All right. Well, let's talk about specifics then. I saw Advanced Auto Parts was one of the big names in the headlines. So, do we know what happened there? Because usually, when I think of auto parts, I'm not thinking of a major target that a cyber company is going to be going after. High stakes wins, right?
You'd be surprised. Advanced Auto Parts has a massive amount of data stored in their Snowflake instance. The hackers managed to exfiltrate 3 terabytes of data. To put that in perspective, that's enough text to fill a library. It included the names, social security numbers, and driver's license numbers of over 380,000 employees, both current and former.
Yeah, that's potentially life-ruining stuff. If someone has your social security number and your driver's license, that's pretty much all it takes to become you. I mean, think about an I-9 verification when you start a new job.
Yeah.
They can open lines of credit, buy cars, apply for loans, all because an auto parts giant didn't toggle on a required MFA switch. Yeah, I went to buy a car battery and suddenly became, hacked because of it. That's rough.
But wait, there's more. It gets worse. The hackers also grabbed data on millions of customers, including their loyalty program info. They took the data and put it up for sale on a forum called Beach Forums for 1.5 million. Wow, that's quite a deal. When you look at the Advanced Auto Parts case, it's a perfect example of how boring companies are actually gold mines for hackers. They don't have the same high-level security budgets as a big tech firm like Google, but they hold the exact same high-value identity data.
Yeah, I actually I had a conversation with somebody at one point in the last year or so, and was talking cyber with them and how they were kind of doing for their business, and their response is we don't really hold any interesting information or important information. I was like, is it important to you? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, then you just negated your argument there.
Yeah,
it's important to you. That can be used as leverage against you, let alone what you really determine is important information. So
yeah, great point.
Yeah.
You can't function as a company if you can't get your information. So tell me again, it's not important to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Ticketmaster, which we've probably all done business with at some point.
Yeah.
This is the one that made everyone I know, check their emails. 560 million customers. It's almost twice the population of the United States.
Yeah, it's a staggering number. And the hackers knew they had a gold mine. They claimed to have everything: names, addresses, emails, phone numbers, and crucially, the last 4 digits of credit cards and their expiration dates. But the real psychological weapon they used was the threat to leak ticket barcodes.
Yeah, that's the part that feels personal. So, if email gets leaked, I get more spam, right? Just more email I'm not going to read anyway. If my credit card gets leaked, the bank cancels it, sends a new one. It's a pain, but not the worst. But don't mess with my T-Swift ticket barcode. If that gets leaked and someone else uses it to get in, even a minute before I do, I'm the one standing outside, trying to shake it off.
Oh, look at you! You are a fan.
My daughter would be so proud of me right now.
Oh, huh. Exactly. It was digital terrorism. They were trying to create a pressurized environment where Ticketmaster would feel forced to pay just to prevent the riot at the next big concert. The hackers, specifically a guy going by the name of SPLD3R, were incredibly chatty about it. They were posting updates like they were a legitimate business, saying things like Ticketmaster still hasn't contacted us. Maybe they don't care about their customers. It was a master class in public relations manipulation. It really was.
And just sidebar, Chris, I worked with enough of white hat hackers and stuff like that. That's Spider. The
Oh,
hacker's
thank
name
you.
is Spider.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. See, well, we can tell who the real cybersecurity guy is here, and the pretender, the fake guy.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
In that world, we would go by the term elite, which is short for elite.
So you're elite.
Yeah, not no. I just can translate. So this was twice the number, twice the size of the population of U.S. So I think I know the answer here, but was this just something that happened in the U.S. or was this kind of happening, across the globe?
It was global. You're right. Santander, the massive Spanish bank, was one of the first to admit they were hit. We're talking about the data of 28 million customers across Spain, Chile, and Uruguay. They also lost data on all of their current and former employees.
A bank, a bank. If there's one place, on the planet that should have multi-factor authentication mandatory for every single account, it's financial institutions, right? Financial institutions, and then healthcare is a
Healthcare.
close second is kind of my feel. How do you go on to explain to the board of directors? Yeah, sorry, we forgot to lock the back door.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
just
yeah, there is no excuse for it, and it's the shadow IT problem. Something a specific department inside a bank, like the marketing or analytics team, will set up their own Snowflake account to run numbers on customer trends. Because it's not the core banking system, it might not go through the same rigorous security audits, but it still contains the same sensitive customer data. To a hacker, that's the perfect target. It's the soft underbelly.
yeah. Um, yeah, just a quick note on that. I mean, the side door is often the easier door to get into, right? We
Yeah.
we lock our front door, we set the alarm and stuff like that, but you leave a window open to get some cool air at night, or the that kind of thing. So the fact that there's an in through a side door in this case, through another part of the business that's got access to the data. Yeah, this is that third party risk thing that we seem to bring up a lot also. Like there's so many elements, right? It's not just multi-factor, it's not just a strong password. It's how are the systems and people that you're trusting into your data securing their systems. And yeah. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, Mandy was investigating. They discovered the hackers were using a custom-built tool that eventually had its name changed to Frostbite by the researchers to be a more professional name than what they had originally come up with. This wasn't some generic script. It was a surgical tool designed specifically to scout out Snowflake environments, list all the tables, and exfiltrate data at lightning speed.
Yeah. So, we're kind of omitting that tool's name. Definitely kind of has that edgy hacker energy, but just the fact that they had a specialized tool for this hack, this compromise, it suggests it wasn't just a random crime of opportunity. They were specifically hunting for this profile of attack, right? They were looking for Snowflake customers and getting them where they knew there was a vulnerability. So, do we actually know who is behind the keyboard on this?
Well, and that's kind of the twist. Investigative journalist Brian Krebs actually linked the you're gonna what's the name of this one? I don't want to get it wrong, Nick.
Judish. Yeah,
Judici
yeah.
persona, one of the lead hackers to a 26-year-old software engineer living in Ontario, Canada, named Connor Riley Munka. this wasn't a state-sponsored spy from a distant land. It was a guy in a suburban neighborhood who was actually bragging about the breach in Telegram chats and coordinating with another hacker in Turkey. Now, hold on, before we move on here. So this guy's obviously a genius to come up with the technology here to go into Snowflake and then exfiltrate data at lightning speed. And then the clown gets on and starts talking about it. I just swear. Where's the line between common sense and brilliance?
Yeah, I guess
Anyway,
it's a thin one.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They want the credibility, I guess.
Yeah.
But here, we always talk about our neighbors to the north and how friendly and nice they are. But it just goes to show, we have a software engineer in Canada. It's kind of where you least expect them to come from, maybe. But it goes to show that you don't need this massive team, and we've talked about the business of ransomware, where there are these marketplaces and all this stuff. You don't need that. You don't. You just need a dedicated person at the end of the day, with a little bit of knowledge and a custom tool and a list of employees who didn't turn on multi-factor. So yet again, it's a reminder that the big bad, so to speak, in cybercrime is sometimes just a guy in his home office or in his basement, who figured out how to exploit a very relatable human mistake.
For months, these guys felt invincible. They were mocking companies, demanding millions, and watching the news. But in October 2024, the find out phase finally arrived. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I don't want to get chased down on a horse to get arrested for a cybercrime. They arrested Munka in Ontario on a provisional warrant from the United States.
Probably was a quiet morning in the suburbs, just up until the tactical teams showed up on horseback, clop, clop, clop. Right? That's what I imagine when you hear mounted police.
Right.
What happened to the guy in Turkey?
Well, that would be John Aaron Binz. He was arrested by Turkish authorities. Binz had a history. He was actually indicted back in 2021 for the T-Mobile hack. These guys were essentially serial breachers. They found a methodology that worked, and they just kept hitting it until they flew too close to the sun. Now they're both facing extradition to the U.S. and a laundry list of federal crimes that could put them away for decades.
Just as a side note, I feel like we're talking about things that are happening here in the U.S. and so in this case, the U.S. is going extraditing from Canada and Turkey and whatnot. How often is it the other way around? How often is somebody in England, the government of England extraditing somebody that's on U.S. soil? It feels like we're, in the U.S. we're prosecuting a lot of these hackers and stuff like that. But maybe it's just because I'm not tuned into that news. But it feels a little bit like a one-way street there.
Maybe that's our next podcast.
Maybe we might have to dig into that one. So while we've got these hackers now sitting in cells, the companies that they hit and took advantage of are sitting in courtrooms. I saw there's AT&T, Ticketmaster, and others facing massive class action lawsuits now. So the attorneys have gotten in and they're trying to get their pound of flesh. And for all the people, you and me and our neighbors that were caught up in this and had our data compromised. Didn't we say Snowflake itself wasn't breached? So how are they getting sued?
Yeah, well, that's the multi-billion-dollar question. It's being called the shared responsibility battle. Snowflake argues that hey man, we provided the locks, but the customers chose not to turn them on. The plaintiffs, however, argue that for the platform handling this much sensitive data, security shouldn't be an opt-out feature. It should be mandatory. And I would have to agree with that.
Yeah. It's a little chicken and the egg, but yeah, at the end of the day, if you're dealing in sensitive data, then feels a little bit like there's an onus on them to just start from the baseline to say, this is important. Here's how we're doing it.
If you want to use our platform, it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit like a car company that sells cars without seat belts and saying, well, we offered them. It's an extra charge. You just didn't choose to install them. At some point, the safety features need to be standard equipment. And
Agreed.
that's what happened in cars, right? They became standard. They were that important. So
yeah, and as a result of the 2024 disasters, Snowflake actually changed their policy. They now require MFA for all new accounts and have built-in tools to nudge existing customers to turn it on. It's a too little, too late situation for the 500 million people whose data is already out there, but it's a massive shift in how the industry views security.
Yeah, it feels like the Snowflake incident was a wake-up call that everyone slept through for the first few hours. We moved all our data to the cloud because it was supposed to be safer. We forgot that the cloud is just someone else's computer. If you don't lock that computer, the provider isn't always going to do it for you.
Yeah, and I think that the ultimate takeaway here is, we talk about this, cybersecurity isn't a product you buy, it's a culture you maintain. One employee trying to download a pirated movie to a laptop used for work ended up costing corporation millions and compromising the data of 500 million people. It's a reminder that in the digital age, we're all connected by our weakest links.
Definitely going to go check my MFA settings. I think I'm pretty good about that, but it's always a good reminder, right?
Yeah.
It's like getting your oil changed or something like that. Like, recharge your batteries, change your oil, check your MFA settings, and maybe stop trying to find free versions of software from 2005, which truthfully I don't think I've done since maybe 2001. So I'm probably okay there.
Yep, probably a good call. And thanks for joining us on True Cyber Crimes. We'll see you in the next disaster. Thanks, Nick.
See you, Chris.